Good morning. I was contemplating the verse with which we are all so familiar. All of our righteousness is as filthy rags, right? Isaiah 64, verses 4 through 6, around there. And he says, we are all as an unclean thing. Now, the world obviously doesn't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that, well, our righteousness is filthy rags. But this message is toward those Christians who are leaning toward the worldly view that there is some goodness in us, in humanity. And let's evaluate the verse. If all of our righteousness, which we all agree, what Christian is going to disagree with that verse, right? All our righteousness is as filthy rags. If that's true, what is left? If even our good deeds, of course our bad deeds are bad, filthy rags, whatever you want to call them. But if our righteousness, our good deeds, there's this movement. Well, we all have a little bit of inherent goodness or capability. You see, if our righteousness is filthy rags, we have no capability of doing good. Paul said there's none who does good, no, not one. Now you have to really latch onto that. Think about it. If there's no one who does good, that sort of eliminates the worldly idea that there's basically goodness in people. People are basically nice. People are basically good. Turn on your TV. Let's wake up. Let's just be honest. That's not true. And when we look at TV, when we look at others and say, well, that's just a bad upbringing, all we're doing is perpetuating the lie and the violence and the evil when we say that, well, we're a product of our environment. Jesus said this. He said, it's not what's outside. Remember the Pharisees, oh, your disciples eat without washing their hands. Jesus says it's not what's outside that defiles a person. It's what's within. He says, for from within, out of the heart, proceed all kinds of blasphemies, fornications, murder, adultery, all this junk, right? Jesus says it comes from the heart. So people say, well, Jesus is a good teacher, but he's not God. Well, okay, let's say he's just a good teacher for a second, which is not true. He's a good teacher and he's God. But let's just say he's a good teacher. He says it's not what's outside that defiles a man. So focus on that. So Isaiah says our righteousness is filthy rags, and Jesus says it's from within. All the junk comes from within. I can't blame dad, though I'd like to. I can't blame mom. I can't blame all of the circumstances or people I was around. The reality is, it's me. The stuff comes from within. When I'm dirty, when I'm vile, when I have evil thoughts and bitterness and grudge and hatred and anger and all that junk that just gets inside the heart and festers, that is from me. It's not because of you. It's not because of my upbringing. It's not because of my neighborhood. It is me. And when we start being responsible and finally get to the place where we own the fact that there is no goodness within us, that's when we wake up. That's when there is newness. That's when we see it and we're grateful. Because if we believe there's some goodness in us, if we believe that, God accepted me because I made a good choice, I exercised my will, I made a good choice that proves the power and goodness of my will, and sorry, Joe unbeliever didn't. Well, if we're still stuck in that mode, then we have not conceded to the fact that our righteousness is filthy rags. We have not conceded to Paul's theology about anthropology, the study of man and his nature in the Bible. We have not conceded to the fact that Paul says there's none good, no, not one. There's no one who does righteous. He says destruction and misery are in our ways. And he says, what then are we better than they? He says, no, in no wise. We before proved, both Jew and Gentile, that they're all under sin. As it is written, there's none righteous, no, not one. There's no one who does good. There's no one who seeks after God. No one. So if you sought after God, it's because God caused you to. It's not because it came from you. But you go on to read the rest of Paul's epistles, and he says we were hateful and hating one another. We say, well, I wasn't hateful. No, that's not me. Well, then you're the one who's deceived. If you truly believe you are not hateful, if we truly believe that, contrary to Paul's words saying we were hateful, that actually we were good, we just were sort of indifferent to others. No, Paul says we were hateful and hating one another. Look around. All of the arguing, all of the politics, all of the societal regulation and legislation that that the government imposes upon people, it all fails miserably. It fails. Why? Because we have not awakened to the fact that our good deeds are filthy rags before God. You see, once we submit to that fact, then we're humble. We're like, oh my gosh, I don't have a right to judge. That's why Paul says, therefore, you are inexcusable, O man, whosoever you are that judge another, because wherein you judge another, you judge yourself, because you that judge do the same things. So if we wake up to that fact, I think we would see a change. But waking up to that fact is impossible. It's the Spirit of God, it's the power of God that causes the mind to see that it is destitute. Jesus said, apart from me, you can do nothing. Enjoy your day.